It's cool. All right, hey guys, welcome to the PiG Daily, episode number 123. Today we're going to be talking about defending Archon drops in PvZ. Let me bring that mic a little bit closer to my mouth. So Archon drops in PvZ, something which get out of control a lot. A lot of players fall apart, shit starts to go really bad, and they kind of just have a very bad time. So we're going to get straight into game, and let's just start having a talk about the Archon drop in PvZ. Now, come on, load up scene. There we go. Okay. I was worried for a second. I was like, oh god, don't give the black screen to the stream, please. So first of all, let's talk about this opening from Protoss and kind of some of the peculiarities of it, how to recognize it and that sort of stuff. Now, I'm playing with Jamelian here. Shout out to Jamelian from Team Esloth. Still the best name of any esports team of all time. And yeah, he helped me out yesterday, as well as Creature, and also King Tesla. So thank you to all the different Esloth boys for helping me out, playing a bunch of customs. We had a lot of fun games. So let's talk about the opening, guys. Basically, you open up with a standard adept usually. You can open up with a stalker. Everyone does it slightly differently. The key thing you'll notice though is there's only a single gateway unit, at most 2 gateway units if someone wants to adjust it slightly. And then they just go straight for that very fast Twilight Council. So for you Zerg players out there who are like, how do I recognize an Archon drop build coming? Protoss always goes for their first tech structure. So it's based on their gas. Their first gas gets spent on warp gate research and then on an adept. Their next 100 gas at about 2 minutes 30 goes directly, well, it depends. With this build, sorry, the next 100 gas actually goes into a mothership core. I was about to misspeak there. And the next 100 gas after that goes directly into a Twilight Council. Sometimes people will change it around, get the Twilight Council, then the mothership core. But you're going to see that first tech structure go down at latest at about 2 minutes 50. So what's interesting is with this build though, Protoss needs a warp prism. They need a second tech structure. So they're going to get that down usually no later than about 3 minutes 10, but no later than about 2 minutes 50 as well. So if you ever come in, you see a robotics at this timing, just seeing that alone kind of gives me enough information to know what I'm up against. First of all, I saw only one adept out, so oh, there's no extra gateway units. And there's a robo down this late. Well, it's not his first tech structure. It's too late to be that. Because like I said, the first tech structure has to go down at least at 2 minutes 50 at the latest. Usually it'll be down at about 2 minutes 30. And just generally, if you see a robo and a Twilight, you're going to realize it's this build. Not only that, but a lot of players will drop their extra gateways at about 3 minutes 20, 3 minutes 30. With this build, you'll notice there's only one gate for a very long time, and only about 3 minutes 40, 3 minutes 45 do we see the Protoss player going up to 4 gateways. So these are the tells of this style. These are things which you can kind of confirm and check on. I saw this late gate starting. I poked in there with my Overlord. I saw the robo timing before that. I saw no gateway production. And these are all tells of this style. So just one unit from the gateway, that's a tell. You see a delayed robo, well, this is one of the very few efficient builds for this. People can do like the super old adept drop build, but that's fallen way out of style. You see these delayed gateways as well, you know exactly what you're up against. So that's kind of the build, that's how you recognize it. The important thing to remember is it will hit you at 5 minutes. So let's fast forward to that point. 5 minutes is when 4 DTs can hit you, or potentially they can just morph Archons straight away and go straight in with 2 Archons. This game, it's not the absolute fastest drop. It's going to be slightly after that. If you're playing in Bronze League, are you going to play someone who hits you at 5 minutes with this? Hells no. It's gonna be a lot later. But generally speaking, those are the timings. You always want to know the kind of perfectly executed timing, and then you just kind of add a bit of offset for your own league. You can say, you know what, I'm in Diamond, I'll be ready by 5 minutes 20, because someone can still execute it pretty crisply if there's not much else going on, but I doubt they're going to hit at 5 minutes. I'll be ready at 5 minutes 20. You can kind of make your own assumptions like that. Now what we're watching here is where everything goes wrong. So this is a situation I think a lot of Zerg players have experienced, where the Protoss player just keeps getting damage, free damage over and over and over again. And let's actually put those health bars on, right? I'll put it on damaged so you guys can see everything just dying. And this is a great example as well of why base location is very important against this build. This third base is terrible against this build. Already this map's pretty good for Archon drop because there's all this dead space up here. You can notice I can have all the queens and spores in the world down here. he can just go past into my main base. There's a lot of dead space all over the place. And as a result, it's very hard to defend normally. But especially with the third base I took, you're going to notice I give him so many angles to attack from. My units are all the way up here, and he's like, oh, guess what? I can like drop on the low ground. I can go back on the high ground. Or I can just come down into your third base. And he just keeps rotating around, and it takes forever for my units to get back and forth in position. I never know which angle he's coming from, and everything starts to fall apart. So if you are playing this map in PvZ, do not take this third base, ever. Always take this third base here. And likewise, always think about that in terms of you want to have your bases in areas where you can zone out the edges. You want to be able to like put shit on the edge so you can just shoo the Archon drop away, right? So why is this bad? This is bad because he can come in from like here, here, here. There's no way to zone it out. However, if I took this base, notice there's not a lot of dead space on the left-hand side, which means if I get a couple queens here and an overlord, the Warp Prism can't just fly past, which means he is forced to either engage here or come around the front. And that kind of limits the angles I need to worry about. So if he's up here, okay, cool. I need a lot of units defending here and here. But if he's down here, it's actually a very impotent angle for him, because as long as I've got like a spore here or a bunch of queens, he can't really just fly on past into the main base. And that's really important. Otherwise, this sort of shit happens. I just take so much damage this game. I just like fall apart. These Archons are just having a party. They're picking off queens. They're killing everything. And I'm crying myself to sleep. So guys, this is an example of where shit goes wrong. That's a game where everything falls apart. I get destroyed in that game. So now let's go into another game and actually look at how you're supposed to defend it and the most important things to remember when you are playing against this. So just gonna bring my notes up on my second monitor. Alright. So just gonna start fast forwarding through this next game. And here we go. Alright guys, so what about the actual response? Once you recognize it's this build, you think it might be coming. Like I said before, I told you what the tells are. How you scout them is up to you. This isn't me telling you to defend the Archon drop, you need to do X build. No, not at all. You can be doing whatever opening you want to. And no matter what opening that is, it doesn't matter. You're always going to come to the same convergence point where you can choose to scout by either sneaking Zerglings past the front, you can send a slow Overlord in. If you're like, no, I need to 100% always get all the information, you can go Overlord speed and use that. It really comes down to your own preference, your own style. This is not a build order guide. This is not me telling you how to do that. Whenever I do a little section guide on a reaction like this, I always get a lot of questions asking those sort of questions. There's a lot of other videos out there from myself and other people talking about that, but this is not the video for that. This is just about your reaction and the different things you should add in. So guys, while I fast forward through, let's talk about the list. Once you recognize what's going on, you want to go for extra queens. It's super important. Notice what I was talking about with Zerglings. The Adept came out, I sent 2 Zerglings to chase the probe, and I split 2 Zerglings off that went all the way around the right-hand side of the map, and I've got them through his main base. Now, are they going to see what's going on? Well, in this game, I'm like, okay, well, I saw something at the front. What did I see at the front? Let's bring my Overlord in to double check. I'm pretty sure that's like a Robo and Twilight. Yep, that's, okay, yep, Twilight and then Robo. I saw the buildings, I clicked on them there, and I say to myself, all right, I know what build this is. I know I don't need to worry about anything until 5 minutes. And here's my reaction. Okay, standard opening, fast third base. This is assuming you've got the standard fast third base setup. If you're not doing this, you're doing something very weird and you might need to adjust slightly differently. But here's what you do. Very fast lair is one of my favorite things to do, because otherwise those DTs can get between your bases and be very annoying. So you want to start this lair at about 3 minutes 45, 4 minutes at the latest. And that's going to allow you to make overseers as those DTs are coming in. You're still going to build a couple spore crawlers, but this is just a nice thing to give you mobility. You'll often see someone like a laser, some other pro gamers, get this fast lair and like not build spores at all. Really kind of toe that line of greed. So you can make those sort of cute adjustments as well. Maybe only build a single spore crawler and just have an overseer at the front on time, if you really want to do that. You want to get a second gas. Well, you pretty much always want to do that, but no later than about 3 minutes 30. And after about 2 bases saturated on minerals, 2 gases, you only ever want to go up to a maximum of 10 drones on your third. From about 4 minutes, you want to be thinking to yourself, oh, I've only got a minute until this attack is coming, this Archon drop, this DT drop. So from about 4 minutes, you want to start queuing up extra queens. You'll usually already have about 3 queens, one for each hatchery at 4 minutes. So you'll notice I start the lair here, and then bam, queen starts up, queen starts up. So I want to go to 5 queens, 2 extra queens to help zone out this warp prism. And I want to drop a roach warren. If you want to be really safe, you want to drop this at 3 minutes 50. I'm a little bit late on this. I dropped it right on 4:01. And you want to do that because then the moment that roach warren finishes, you want to build about 10 roaches to help you defend. So it's 2 extra queens, 10 roaches. What else? You always want to have a few zerglings. I'm actually a big fan of 8 zerglings at the Protoss third base. Remember what we talked about with this build. The Protoss only builds 1 or 2 gateway units. And because they use their whole first 4 gates of warp in on this warp prism, as we're about to see over here, they don't have warp ins, but they're usually going to try and take their third base. If I had like 8 or 10 zerglings here, I would have been able to deny this expansion attempt and delay that a good amount. So you always want to at least have a few zerglings at the third trying to slow that down. If you can squeeze 10 zerglings out to just kind of sit there, that's going to be fantastic because zerglings nearly useless against the DTs and the prism drop, but so good for making sure the Protoss plays honestly at home and isn't too greedy. So you go for about 10 roaches, you get those extra queens. At 4 minutes 30, you want to drop spore crawlers in your natural and third base. Of course, like I said, sometimes you can just make an overseer and get away with that, but I do like that. Notice I'm skipping the spore in the main because that's further back. It's much harder for my opponent to get DTs in the main, and that's why I'm going to be skipping that one. At least until later on in the game. Now you'll notice here, my roach warren was a little bit late. I've built 10 roaches, or 6 roaches for now. I'll add a few more on. But they're not out just yet. So this is that problem with not getting that roach warren at 3 minutes 50, getting it at 4 minutes 01, being slightly late on starting the roaches. The DTs get to have a little bit of a party here. But I do buy enough time, don't take too much damage. And what you're going to notice here, hotkeys, I've got 2 queens on a hotkey. This is my creep / defense hotkey. And what I'm doing right now is I'm really on point with rotating those. And wherever that warp prism comes in from, if you can be on the edge of your base waiting for it, you basically just like push it away and it does almost nothing. There is a vast difference between a Zerg who has good creep spread, good vision, and can push these away, and a player who doesn't react until it's already in his mineral line. That is huge. It is so damn massive. So let's also talk about that creep spread. You'll notice here, I already have 1. I also have another creep tumor, which I started there to connect my bases. There's only a slight gap, and it worked its way down here. So 2 creep tumors and a 3rd creep tumor. This gives me great vision. If we look at my vision, that's fantastic. I've also got overlords in the dead space, so I can see the warp prism ahead of time when it comes from these angles. But notice these are overlords that are spotting. They are out of range of Archons. Archons cannot get in range to snipe those down. One of the other big things you need to remember whenever you're doing this style is pull your overlords home. As soon as you recognize this is the style, you got to go, oh, if I've got overlords all just sitting out in the open, pull them back and only keep them in the dead space. You've got to rely on creep tumors for vision. Otherwise, you're giving free damage to those Archon drops. So here we're going to see what I was talking about, how you can kind of zone out the edge. Even though my queens weren't in position, my creep's just getting out. Because I had a little bit of warning with the creep spread, I am able to hold this off for now. I'm going to rotate those extra queens back over. Come on, you lazy piece of shit. Well, I'm a little bit slow on it. But here we go. We see because this is like a single edge, he tries to be greedy, fly past into the main. There's not enough dead space here. Loses his warp prism. And if that ever happens, it's almost like a game-winning move. Shout out to Creature for helping us out here. And as he said, never again. Every Protoss player knows the absolute feeling of failure when that happens. You're like, oh god, it's all over, man. All right, so what have I not mentioned? I mean, I talked about 10 roaches. You get 2 extra queens. Not only that, but when you're dealing with the pressure, right from when it's first coming in, it's important to keep droning and building overlords during that. Remember here, guys, at the start. Oh, sorry, even before that, he had a really tight timing. So remember, right from 5 minutes, when these DTs came in, I had to like really focus on defending this, like microing queens because my roaches weren't out. And that made things harder for me than it needed to be. And you might think, well, that's cool though, because you ended up defending it well, so it worked out really well, right, Pig? This was really worth it. Not really. I would say it's worse to do this because you're going to notice that because I'm so focused, microing, I'm distracted, I'm losing a few roaches, I start to bank up minerals. Whereas if I already had like 5 or 6 roaches out here, I just kind of deflect this, and I feel really comfortable. So it's important to keep droning building overlords behind the pressure, and the more prepared you are, the easier it is to do that. So especially if you're not a crazy high level Zerg who's great at dealing with things under pressure, you want to be able to give yourself just a little bit more breathing room so you can keep building lots of drones and overlords and keep that tech going behind this. Of course, where you go from here is totally up to you. If you want to go Ravager, Ling Bane, if you want to go Hydra Lurker, there's a lot of different styles you can go for. But there's a few other things which are quite important as well. So one of those is you should really be scouting. Basically, from the moment this Prism drop comes in, after you get your Overseer and your 10 Roaches out, you should already be making an Overseer as this pressure is happening and scouting their base. And this is really important because you need to actually check your opponent to see just how dirty and how disgusting he is being. What is your opponent up to behind this? In this case, oh look, there's already lots of probes mining on that third. That's kind of a big tell. But a lot of the time you'll see a third and then they won't actually be building probes for it. And that's something which is very worrying. That can really screw you over. So let's take a look at a little video of exactly the main reason you need to scout very, very hard. And that is, we've got an example from IEM Gyonji of Stats who, oh, you're kidding me. Sorry guys, my obs is being the biggest piece of shit right now. Is that one gonna work? No, display capture, let's try this one. There we go. Okay, my computer decided to change the orientation of my monitors. It decided that my first monitor is my second monitor, my second monitor is my first one, so it just screwed up for a second there. Anyway, I don't know why my computer does stuff like that. What we're seeing here is Stats has opened up with the Archon drop. He's been really persistent. He's been kicking some ass. Big shout out to ESL and IEM for this VOD, by the way. I will be linking it in the show notes. So the Archon's going to come in, and you'll notice in that work account, that's the big thing. 44 probes only. His third base is quite late. I think Lysira might have been denying that with like the Zerglings I was talking about. That's something Lysira loves to do. But there we see Stats does the big doo-doo move, loses his Warp Prism. The important thing here though is charge is done. There's 2 Immortals and there's Sentries. And this is a really powerful timing attack. It can be quite all in. In this scenario, we see it needs to do damage because he's at 44 probes versus 65 drones. He actually, because he lost those Archons, and because Lysira had denied his third for so long and got up to such a good worker lead and had enough units to defend here, this was actually a scenario where Lysira was actually fine against it. But a lot of the time, you won't want to drone so hard. You'd want to stop. If you see a Protoss who's only on 2 mineral lines, you kind of want to say to yourself, like, hey, hold on a second, buddy. I want to stop at 55 drones. Like, I know you're at like 45 probes on 2 base. If I'm at 55, maybe 60 drones, that's cool. I'm building less efficient units than you. You're taking up to like charge Immortal Archons. I'm just making like Roaches and Banelings or Ravagerling Bane, or I'm making, you know, Roaches and Hydras in this particular game. And you just want to stop there and build a lot of units though. What ended up happening in this actual VOD was kind of sad. I guess I'll just skim through. Basically, Lysira just was like, hey, I held the attack. Cool. He must be building lots of probes now. And he just stops building units and then wastes all of his gas on Vipers, which is the last thing you need against a charge lot army. And Stats, after like herping and derping around for several minutes out front the base, just commits. And because Lysira hasn't added any, he's just thrown a bunch of Zerglings away on a counterattack. And because he hasn't built any more fighting units, you can see his army didn't increase in that whole minute. He actually gets overwhelmed by this attack because he underestimates it. So it's really important to, not underestimate these attacks. And just generally, I mean, even if you're going Roach Hydra, yes, Vipers are great. But you've got to think about what's the real hard-hitting power of this army. Well, let's add in 10, 15 slow banelings to my force, or just have enough critical mass of Roach Hydra that they can just stutter step and blast the charge lots down while the Immortals and Archons kind of impotently try to run you down. And that'll work very, very well. Cool, guys. So I'm going to just show you one more game while I go over those points one more time very, very quickly. Answer any questions in chat. Shout out your questions. Let me get that second replay open as quickly as possible, and I will take a look at that. Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward through to the key point. And we're going to look just a little bit more at some of those details. So guys, I talked about how once you spot it, from about 4 minutes, you want to be adding 2 extra queens. You want to be adding a Roach Warren at about 3 minutes 50 usually. Obviously, like I said, there's a little bit of give and take in terms of your timings can be a bit more relaxed. If you're lower level, you can say, oh, I'm diamond, let's delay by 20 seconds. You know, you don't want to just follow pro gamer timings necessarily for your own skill level, but that's something you can, you know, choose to add on your own and make your own assessment of that. It's important to not chase the Archon drop too far, but let's look at this creep spread once more. So creep is connecting the bases. Let's look at this game. Come on, creep spread, creep spread, creep spread. We see 2 more queens are on the way super early this game. Roach Warren is ready. Spores start at 4 minutes 30. It's the same pattern every single time. Roaches starting. This time I think the roaches are a little bit more on time. Oh, we can see once again the DTs come in. There's no roaches here. He's got a pretty crisp DT drop timing. So he actually manages to snipe a few queens. I'm going to have to replace those. And I'm like, oh god, it's kind of stressful. But once you got Overseer and roaches out, it's like, okay, you need to leave now. And notice creep. It's all about that creep. Now, there is always one Overlord, which I just leave on the map because I think I was just like, whatever, he's just too exposed. He's going to die anyway. But otherwise, remember, I've pulled back all the other Overlords, so they're all only in the dead space. They're all protected. I've even moved this Spore Crawler from the mineral line out there, so it's harder for him to come in and out and drop. And the moment I see this Archon drop coming, I will move these queens up to the edge. And this is so important. Just this little move of being on the edge. Every Protoss player knows the feeling of someone who doesn't have queens on the edge, and they go, yeah, my Archon drop's going to do massive damage. And then they know the feeling of playing a player who's always got queens on the edge, always got queens hitting on that Warp Prism. And it really is all about this Warp Prism hit points. You never really kill the Archons very quickly, but every hit you get on this Warp Prism just diminishes the freedom the Protoss player has to dance in and out on your bases. And taking this damage already, not doing any real direct damage, is terrible. Now he's got to wait for those shields to fully regenerate. He's lost half of the core hit points. He knows he's in a very bad position after that. And behind this, guys, remember, just droning on up, droning really hard. Scouting. This is something I'm really bad on. This is like, you know how they say wisdom is being able to take your own advice? I'm not very wise. I always forget to Overseer Scout until really late. Once the third's already fully saturated, and if I was facing a big attack, I would have wanted to be building Ravageling Bane already, and maybe droning a little bit less. But yeah, so you've got to just kind of mass up units like that. What else have I not talked about? Unless you see the Prism go all the way home, always leave a squad of 6 roaches split up. So you notice here I get pretty good vision out. But if I ever lose vision or I lose the creep tumors, it's really important for me to just split my roaches up. If I don't see where he's coming from, what I should be doing is grabbing about 6 roaches, leaving them up here, while the rest of my army hangs out down here at like my 4th and 3rd. It's very integral that you do that. If you don't do that stuff, you will kind of get in a lot of trouble. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. By the way, guys, when it comes to the actual stats timing, what are you scouting for? That's a common question. So what you look for, what my Overseer would have been looking for is there a butt ton of gateways here? And remember, you should be doing that scout at 5 minutes 30. So let's look at this, imagining I scouted kind of as the Archon DT drops coming in. My next bit of gas goes towards an Overseer. I scout through. What would I see here? I'd see a Forge. Most importantly, if you see probes popping out of the next eye, and if you see the lights on the next eye being activated, you see these little lights here going up, this little crescent shape, that actually means probes are producing right now. If we can find a nexus that's not producing, let's check the 3rd when it finishes. I'll show you guys the difference. So notice there's no lights, and the lights start up as probe production starts up. So that's something you can look for, is are they building probes? If a Protoss player isn't building probes, there's a bloody good chance he's going to come and try to kill you. Also, around this same moment, you would be seeing a lot of gateways going down. Notice this game, there's a Forge. A Forge is an investment in the later game. A few more gateways come down, but this is only at 6 minutes 20. This is way after that Overseer Scout should hit. So looking at this game, we see, oh, he's investing in heaps of economy. He's fully probing his 3rd base. He's actually got more workers than me. He's grabbing the gases, and only now does he have the gateways. And that's the difference in your scouting information. All right. GG's, well played. Thank you guys who did help me out with that show yesterday. We played a whole bunch of customs, and I think some of those replays are going to be good for talking about other stuff as well. So that should be awesome. It doesn't look like there's too many questions there. Is Ravageling Bane better than Hydra Lurker? No, not necessarily. It all comes down to the different situations and how it all goes. So, awesome. I am, by the way, guys, going to be casting Ladder Heroes with Fear Dragon. I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm going to be hosting him up in just a second. Just letting Fear Dragon know that I am pretty much done. I'm going to host him up in just a moment. Awesome. Ariani says, Proto says, more workers feels bad, man. Yeah, pretty sure I still won that game, though, even though my defense was not absolutely perfect. But, guys, it's all about those key points. So, to summarize one last time, of course, you can look in the show notes as well. I will be linking that all up for all of you guys. I'll probably be putting this replay into a Spawning Tool article, so it'll be down in the pinned comment on YouTube. If it's not up, it means you're watching this literally in the hours after I've put it up. It'll be going up this afternoon. Yeah, so key points, 3-minute 50 Roach Warren, 2 extra queens, by about 4 minutes 30 at the absolute latest. You want to be dropping spores at your natural and third at 4 minutes 30. You want to be building 10 roaches the moment that that hatchery is finished, and you'd like to have 2 or 3 creep tumors spreading out vision, and you want to pull your overlords away from spots where Archons can see them, and make sure they're in the areas where they're spotting the dead space where the Archons can't reach them to give you forward warning. Always micro your queens to the edges of creep, and you will be able to defend. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the daily. I will be back tomorrow with another show, and thank you very much for hanging out. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course, punch a garden gnome in the nuts. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.